Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Sean Huggins and this is Europe with Hugs. Thank you so much for being here. Today we are taking a look at, blocking it, bam, Poland's territorial evolution. This is from General Knowledge. Check out the original video linked in the description as always. But we're going to see the evolution of Poland over the years. So, jak się masz and welcome to the channel. Let's get into it.
Poland. Today, we all know Poland as this country in Central Eastern Europe, and the reality is it always existed there, sort of, and the sort of part is pretty important, because throughout history, since its very first establishment, Poland's territory has moved around quite a lot. It's not like the examples we saw in a previous video about countries that moved, with Bulgarians or Hungarians straight up moving their nation from one place to the other. No, Poland's case is more one of a series of gradual shifts. So to understand how Poland's territory has evolved, how its borders have changed, and how its location has effectively moved, we're going to do the following. Take a trip through Poland's history from the moment of its creation to its various key moments throughout time, most of them being connected to territorial changes. Understanding these moments of change and what caused them throughout Poland's many forms of existence, tribe, duchy, kingdom, Commonwealth, and republic, all the way up to today's modern territory and borders. Let's jump right into it.
Attention! General Knowledge. Thank you for your service, sir.
Poland's existence throughout time is complicated, as we'll see ahead. It's very much on and off. Being a valuable territory, it was coveted by its neighbors, namely the powers that would one day become Germany, Austria, and Russia. And so, for long periods of history, a sovereign Polish state did not exist. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get back to the start. The first instance of a Polish sovereignty can be the tribe of the Polans. The Polans were, in the 9th and 10th centuries, a tribe of West Slavic people. They existed here in much of what is today modern Poland, and they neighbored other tribes that were the historical predecessors of their future neighboring countries. The Veleti, the Vistulans, the Moravians, and the Czechs, among others. It's interesting how we can actually read an excerpt from a medieval religious text that says, across the Oder River are the Polans. The Oder River today is one of the borders between Poland and Germany. It's interesting how it was a natural border even back then. Taking up a leading role at the time, the Polans were able to unite several groups under the rule of the House of Piast, the first ruling dynasty of the nation. And so, expanding their territorial control, they founded the First Duchy of Poland in the year 960, taking its name from the leading tribe and being ruled by Mieszko I. And Mieszko achieved two additional things that contributed to the expansion of Poland's territory at this time. First, he united most of the Lakitic tribes. Here the red line shows us the Polish border in the year 992 at the time of Mieszko's death, and it was significantly larger than it had been a few decades before. It's really impressive how much it grew. In dark red is the duchy's initial area of control. The north, Pomorze, Mazowsze, and Lithuania were annexed by 980, while the south was just at the end of his reign, and the territory they controlled wasn't that far off what modern Poland is. The viability of the emerging state was assured by their persistent territorial expansion, beginning with a very small area around Gniezno before the town itself even existed. And second, he began the nation's conversion into Christianity, one of the first to do it this far east into Europe at the time. This conversion was determinant because it allowed his son and successor, Boleslaw I, to turn the duchy into a kingdom, the Kingdom of Poland. And it's interesting because Boleslaw was key to maintaining a unified Poland. He was his father's oldest son from his first wife and wasn't meant to inherit the crown. Mieszko instead intended his younger sons from his second wife to divide the duchy amongst them. Boleslaw was able to push them aside and inherit full control of the crown, keeping the territories together. And he began a series of military campaigns towards the surrounding territories.
What a beast!
He moved into Moravia, Czechia, Russia, Prussia, and even Germany, contradicting his father's policy of establishing good relations with the Holy Roman Empire. Despite risky, these incursions meant the expansion of Poland's territory even more. In this map, we can see the red border, which depicts Poland's territory at the time of Boleslaw's death in 1025. In darker red are the territories he inherited from his father. In lighter red are the lands he annexed throughout his reign, such as Moravia in 1003, Luzysz and Milsko in 1002, Pomerania in 1015, and Grodny Czerwiński in 1018. I'm gonna mispronounce a lot of Polish names in this video. Czechia, Bohemia, and Slovakia were temporarily controlled but not annexed, and even Russia was temporarily dependent on Poland.
Oh wow.
With all these new lands, just before dying in 1025, he was given permission by the Pope to be crowned king and establish the Kingdom of Poland. However, things were about to go wrong for the first of many times in Poland's history.
Oh no.
Sons
Wait a minute. When has anything ever gone wrong in Poland's history? Let's find out.
Fought amongst themselves, and then they all died, which led to various internal turmoils and foreign invasions. In 1039, there was a Bohemian invasion, and losing territories, the first kingdom collapsed, going back to being a duchy. 3 rulers after that did a good job at building back Poland, starting with Casimir the Restorer, then Boleslaw II and Vladislav I. These were able to regain territories and re-establish the kingdom in 1076. By 1102, Boleslaw III rose to power, and Poland looked much like it did at the time of its first ruler, Mieszko. At the start of his reign, Poland controlled this area here in darker red, annexing the remaining shades throughout his reign and reaching even more territory by the time of his death in 1138. With Poland now reaching into Pomerania and expanding its Baltic Sea coast, conquering for instance the important location of Gdansk, which would prove symbolic in Poland's history far into the future. When in 1138 Boleslaw III died, the kingdom was fragmented, dividing it into 5 principalities: Silesia, Greater Poland, Mazovia, Sandomierz, and Krakow. The first 4 provinces were given to his 4 sons, who became independent rulers.
Krakow was a
The
province?
5th province, Krakow, was to be added to one of them, who would be elected by the others as the representative of all of Poland. Of course, this didn't work. They just fought among themselves over who got to be in charge, and the kingdom split up, eventually leading to the end of the Piast dynasty's rule over a united Poland. This map shows us that fragmentation. Because of these internal conflicts, none of the princes was able to secure the external borders. Borderlands either declared independence or were annexed to neighboring states. The emergence of a new regional power, such as the Teutonic Knights, brought unbalance, which was aggravated by foreign invasions such as that of the Mongols. It's interesting that the Teutonic Order actually arrived by invitation of one of the Polish princes, Conrad I of Mazovia, to fight off pagans in Old Prussia. However, they soon overstepped their authority and established their own monastic state, moving against Poland itself.
Yep, that'll happen.
Attempts at reunification were made, but all were unsuccessful in the long run, one of which even saw a foreign king rule much of Poland for some time, Wenceslaw II of Bohemia. This was in 1301. There was a final attempt of the Piast dynasty to reform the united Polish kingdom by King Vladislav I and his son Casimir III, but it was too late. A lot of the princes retained control of their lands
and
didn't
look so cool.
In fact, gravitating more towards Poland's neighbors. The kingdom lost Pomerania and Silesia, the most developed and economically important regions of the original Polish lands, which left half of the Polish population outside the kingdom's borders. To make up for it, Casimir III attempted to conquer lands to the east, but these were populated by other ethnicity, not Poles. Despite losing many territories, Poland was very prosperous during this time and benefited much from the arrival of Jewish populations that were refugees from Western Europe. This long-lasting settlement would continue up to World War II. During the time of Casimir III's rule, Poland's first territorial shift took place, with its territory moving further east. In this map, we can see it. Their borders at Casimir's death in 1370 included many lands previously not under Polish control and excluded many of the ones previously united under the kingdom. The north, Prussia and Pomerania were lost to the Teutonic Order, Silesia was lost to the Kingdom of Bohemia, and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania expanded far into the east. When Casimir died without an heir, his nephew Louis I, King of Hungary and Croatia, inherited the Polish throne with Casimir's sister as a regent. This was effectively the end of the Piast dynasty's rule. The union with Hungary was short though. After Louis' death in 1382,
Dude, Hungary always got their fingers in something, don't they?
power struggle that resulted in the Great Polish Civil War, the Polish nobility decided that Jadwiga, Louis's youngest daughter, should become the next ruler. Jadwiga was soon married to the Grand Duke of Lithuania, Jogaila, in 1385. And this marked the start of a long period of union between Poland and Lithuania.
Oh, the unification of Poland and Lithuania. That's pretty cool. My great-grandmother came to America from Lithuania, so that's interesting.
Between 1385 and 1569, a series of events would take place to consolidate this union with Lithuania, and the arrival of a new ruling dynasty, the Jagiellonian, both of which would have serious impact on Poland's territorial evolution. In this map, we can see the borders of the two kingdoms together in 1434, as well as the dividing line between them. In dark red are Poland's possessions, in dark pink those of Lithuania, in light red are Poland's expansions, and in light pink Lithuania's. As we can see, Poland managed to regain some of its old territories around Warsaw, as well as Pomerania, plus they expanded into the area of Moldova, even reaching the Black Sea coast. But these were not all territories they managed to keep for a long time. Moldova, for instance, was soon lost. And by 1526, the Crown of Poland controlled only these territories here in beige, having successfully defeated the Teutonic Order and established a fiefdom over their territory of Prussia. Still, they were unified, and it seems this, at the time still partial union with Lithuania, was proving highly beneficial. After all, they were secure in their eastern border, and this allowed them to focus on the rest, not to mention the direct military aid Lithuania could provide to as an ally. Much of Old Poland's land was under their control again, especially the areas surrounding major settlements such as Gdansk, Poznan, Warsaw, Krakow, Lublin, or Lwów. By 1569, Poland's territorial control had grown even more. The victory in the Livonian War against Russia saw them annex part of today's Latvia, keeping Courland as a fiefdom, not to mention the vast lands in the south whose control switched from Lithuania to Poland itself within the Union. Why this change took place is something I couldn't find out. This year, the Union of Lublin took place, and the personal and then dynastic union between the two states was made official, and a single, unified state was created, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. The Commonwealth was one of the big...
Whoa, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Dude, look how big it is. Holy crap. I had no idea that Poland was so big at times in its history. That is interesting to see.
Biggest countries in Europe at the time, and was ruled by a single elected monarch who carried both the duties of King of Poland and Grand Duke of Lithuania.
They
took up territories today part of Poland, Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, huge. A gigantic country. By 1582, it was 800,000 square kilometers, raising that up to 1 million square kilometers by 1618. There were many territorial changes throughout its existence, but for a while the territory maintained itself, only growing slightly. At its greatest extent in 1619, this is what the Commonwealth looked like. But from there onwards, they began losing land. First in Prussia that same year. In 1626, they lost much of Livonia to Sweden. In 1655, Sweden invaded the Commonwealth itself in what became known as the Deluge. The campaign was disastrous for the Polish and Lithuanians, having been weakened by wars in the south against the Ottomans and Cossacks, and with Russia joining in the invasion as well. The crown's control was reduced to this small area here in the south that we see in yellow. The Swedish siege of Krakow can be seen here as well. During the wars, the Commonwealth lost approximately one-third.
Look at the scale of this battle. That is fascinating. Look at, oh my gosh, look at all these people and stuff. Wow, that is interesting.
Of its population, as well as its status as a great power. Some claim the destruction suffered here was even greater than that of World War II. Warsaw, the capital, was destroyed by the Swedes, and out of a pre-war population of 20,000, only 2,000 remained. According to an estimate made by the Polish government in 2012, 188 cities and towns, 186 villages, 136 churches, 89 palaces, and 81 castles were completely destroyed in the invasion. The decline of the Commonwealth began, and even after the war, having survived it, their territory was less, and their power vastly reduced, both economically and militarily. The second era of Poland-Lithuania saw more and more losses of territory,
Whoa.
mostly to Prussia in the west and Russia in the east, as well as some to the Cossacks and or Ottomans in the southeast. Still, the territory remained reasonably stable in size from 1672 to 1772 for almost 100 years, but then the partitions began. There were 3 of them, each a result of a conflict with its neighbors of Prussia, Austria, and Russia, and each of those 3 took parts of Poland and Lithuania every time until it was wiped off the map. The first one took place in 1772, the second in 1793, after which Poland was briefly a republic, seeing its territory very reduced, and the third removed Poland completely from the map only 2 years later in 1795. After this, they would not exist as a sovereign entity for 123 years, with only a brief exception when they existed in 1807 as the Duchy of Warsaw, a Napoleonic state, as well as Congress Poland in 1815, but
dude, they were independent states for 1 year?
neither of them lasted.
What?
After World War I, with the defeat of Austria-Hungary and Germany as the central powers, and with the collapse of the Russian Empire with the Bolshevik Revolution, a second Polish Republic was created, taking up this territory, closely resembling its previous territory during its early days as a kingdom, and also during the Commonwealth with Lithuania, with special relevance to their taking of part of Pomerania and Poznan, as well as part of Silesia from Germany and Gdansk, all 4 of which had been German for quite some time and had a lot of German populations. They existed from 1918 to 1939, year when Germany invaded them again, in agreement with the Soviet Union to attempt to wipe them off the map once more. Germany took most of it, fully annexing part and establishing a general government protectorate in the rest, bringing havoc and destruction everywhere. The Soviet Union, in turn, annexed the eastern provinces. Once again, Poland was destroyed and its sovereignty disappeared at the hands of Germany and Russia. Thankfully, Germany was again defeated, and after the end of the war, the sovereignty of Poland was restored, but again with different borders, shifting significantly to the west this time and taking up even more Germanized areas. However, taking up borders that are the closest they had been in a long time to the first Polish kingdom of Boleslaw I in the year 1025. That first map we saw shows us this as well. And I think the explanation, although seemingly inexistent or at least confusing at first, has become more clear in our travel throughout Poland's history of territorial changes. They first existed as a small tribe of the Polands, they confederated those tribes and were able to expand their territory further, becoming a duchy and eventually a kingdom, taking up this vast territory. Eventually, countless conquests and defeats took place, all the way to the point of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the territory in gold on this map. After its destruction and disappearance for 123 years, the country came back, and the chosen borders were the closest they could be to those of the Commonwealth, reflecting Poland's previous expansion into Eastern Europe as a way of compensation for their further previous losses in the West. When they disappeared again, a different decision was made upon the remaking of the state. First, the Soviet Union's temporary alliance with the Allied forces against Germany led to the fact that they couldn't lose territory on a war that they won. This caused an inability to give Poland its eastern territories back. Second, the desire to better match the original Polish lands from the times of its creation, perhaps adding territories to the west to make up for the fact that they couldn't get the eastern ones back, paired with an additional desire to weaken Germany after the war. This GIF shows us a comparison between post-World War I and post-World War II Poland, as well as the border changes of other European countries, and we can really tell that it was a significant shift in territory. By 1952, Poland fell into the sphere of influence of the Soviet Union, and despite not being a part of the USSR directly, it was almost a Russian puppet for this period. Being a part of the Warsaw Pact, the Soviets' version of NATO at the time, and being stuck behind the famous Iron Curtain of Europe. However, during this time, no territorial changes took place. By 1989, Poland was one of the first countries to break free from Soviet control, and with the collapse of the USSR altogether, their sovereignty was fully restored once again. So, that is the territorial evolution of Poland and the explanation of how and why it moved around in territory throughout time.
Dobrze. Anyways, that was awesome. I'm sure with any of these videos, the details might not be 100% correct all of the time. It's hard to get every single detail for an entire country's history. A history so long and detailed like this, it's hard to get that correct. But I do think that that was probably a pretty good overall basic introduction to the history of Poland and how it got its territory. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. But I'm curious what you guys, the experts, have to say about it. What do you think of the video? How did he do? What are your thoughts? Leave your comments down in the comment section below. And if you lasted this long and you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing. It helps the algorithm, which helps the channel, and is very much appreciated. But that being said, that's all the time that I have for today. So thank you guys so much for being here. And as always, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.